Well, in terms of the domestic political effect of the coalition, that's probably the last thing I should try to analyze, because I'm sure I don't understand all the intricacies of it. But I do think that it was an important step for parties that want to have a successful constitutional representative government to deal with the crisis created by the prior government. And in the history of Moldova since independence, unfortunately, there have been a number of cases where democratic forms didn't produce truly representative government. So this is a politically difficult coalition for both parties. I think both of them are working in good faith. I don't underestimate the difficulty. I'm sure they don't underestimate the difficulty either. But it is important to strengthen the institutions that are reflected in representative government, and they seem to have agreed on a common approach to reform of the judicial system, the anti-corruption campaign. All of these things, I think, are positive for the country. In terms of Moldova and U.S. strategic interest in it, look, we had a major role in the end of the Cold War, the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the expansion of NATO as a defensive alliance. There are still areas on the periphery of Russia that have not achieved the kind of security internationally that we would like to see. What I'm in part trying to demonstrate on this trip in Ukraine, in Moldova, in Belarus, is that there's a common thread that the security, the independence, the sovereignty of these countries is important for the security and stability of Europe as a whole. And in that, the United States has a major national interest. We expect what are no longer newly independent states, what are clearly independent states, should be allowed to function with full sovereignty over their territory and with through constitutional representative institutions. They should be allowed to develop militaries and their own security structures as they think best benefits them, not benefits somebody else. And when there are external actors on their territories, we should work to ensure that those actors leave under conditions satisfactory to the government in question. That's why in the case of Ukraine, we've said repeatedly, we do not recognize the annexation of the Crimea. We do not recognize Donbass as being somehow separate from the rest of Ukraine. We don't recognize any independent political entity here in Moldova, and we want to be sure in the case of Belarus that if they want to remain independent, which they say they do, that in fact they do remain independent. I think obviously it's a decision for each country to make based on what the leaders of the country, hopefully elected through democratic institutions, conclude is in the best security interest of the country. I can look at a map just like everybody else can. I can see what the position of Moldova is. And certainly the United States is not a country that has any aspirations on its own for this part of the world, other than to let its people live in security and independence. So we have cooperated with Moldova in terms of military education, military assistance. We've had joint maneuvers with them. We've done a lot of things together. We're not pushing them in any direction one way or the other, and we expect that other countries aren't going to push them in one direction either. If they make a democratic decision to move closer to NATO, that's something we should look at very carefully. But it's a matter that we leave to Moldova. We want the people here to have a free choice as a sovereign country how they best maintain their national security. Global Magnitsky Act is a publicly available statute, but I'm sure that the Justice Department, prosecutors, and others who handle it on a regular basis would be happy to talk to authorities here to adopt it if to Moldovan circumstances, if that's what the country's leaders and parliament wanted to do.